Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I appreciate you guys coming back. This is going to be the second podcast that I've done individually here, and I just like to keep it pretty informal. I like to keep it relaxed, and we just kind of talk about whatever comes up. Mostly, it's going to be related to spiritual topics, of course, and we'll just kind of go from there. So today, I actually have my good friend Aurora Seraphine. We met at the William Henry Conference in April, actually April 2022. It was called Halo 2.0. It was an Ascension conference in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was great. We were a couple of the only people that were kind of from a younger age bracket. And it's important, and me and Aurora talk about this a lot. It's important to have good representation, in different age groups because when it comes to spiritual topics, a lot of these things take lifetimes to really get a good grasp on. And I think Aurora can appreciate that as well. And so, no, it's important to me to build a team of people who are of younger generations so that we can make sure we have good representatives when we move forward. We're the new leaders. We're already leaders, at the current moment. But when the old generations pass, I want to make sure that we have people in place that are going to do a good job. And there's not a lot of people necessarily that I personally feel like are doing that, even within some of the older generations. So when I find someone that we have a lot of in common with, which of course Aurora and me do have a lot in common, huge amount in common actually, it's important to establish a connection and try to build the narrative in a correct way, and also a way that's open, and letting people in. I'm trying to close ideas off or people off. I want it to be like a flow. Everyone's ideas are welcome. Just be respectful of other people. That's the only thing that I ask. Okay, so I'm going to read Aurora's bio here, and then we'll get started. Today, it's actually going to be about past lives and reincarnation. A really exciting topic. I haven't done this one yet, and it's, along with every topic, I'm always ready to jump in. It's always very exciting to kind of get going into anything that's spiritual related. I know Aurora agrees with that for sure. Okay, so again, past lives and reincarnation. We'll be looking at maybe some of the different world traditions and personal experience with this, how we pulled in what we felt ourselves, and kind of how things develop. I like to see firsthand experience. I have some myself as well. People we've known. It's going to be an exciting show for sure. Okay, and I'm going to pull in a little astrology too. I know Aurora had mentioned that to me before the show, and you can sometimes see that in astrology as well in terms of past lives, things of that nature. So we'll go over that too. Okay, so Aurora is the founder of Divine Alchemy Temple Arts, a spiritual healing practice offering numerous ways to heal, awaken, and grow, both in person and remotely. She is an integrative holistic healing practitioner, unifying many sacred modalities in a harmonic way. With a lifelong sensitivity to energy and the other realms, she naturally gravitated to music and the healing arts. 2007, she co-founded a healing, training, and events center for subtle energy practices and paradigm-busting gatherings. Today, she is a bodyworker, medical intuitive, advanced energy worker, hypnotist, deep-trance sound healer, teacher, and student. Aurora is also a writer, speaker, meditator, experiencer, mother of two, and an advocate for organic high vibe living and spirit directed pregnancy and birth. And I can attest to that. Her and Karen, my co-host Karen Holton, had a really wonderful conversation about pregnancy on Karen's Quantum Guide show, and I was very impressed with that. It's something that I've never heard people talk about before in that way. So great job with that, Aurora, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, she is an avid researcher of ancient texts, medicines, civilizations, and traditions. It is Aurora's commitment to remain devoted to the inner divine and the path of miracles, to remember and to share the collective birthright of living our heaven on earth. And I agree with that too, because we have to create the heaven if we want to see it, guys. It's not going to be done for us. So take 20, 30 years, who knows? I don't care. I'm in it for the long haul. So the more we stick with it, the more people jump on with us, and we can actually start to make change. And Aurora's website is www.divinealchemytemplearts.com. And her YouTube channel is called Aurora Alchemy. And alchemy in that case is spelled Alkhemy. Welcome, Aurora. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I know that the intro, that it's a bit of a mouthful sometimes doing the bio and everything, but I appreciate the fabulous introduction. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm really excited about this. We kind of have, and me and Aurora have been friends for a while. We've been talking about doing a show. Took me a while to get kind of my own a podcast going. I had to figure out all the technology aspects, but now that I've got it up, it's great. We can start to have more conversations, and I'm always interested in people's perspectives. Sometimes they're, in fact, a lot of times they're probably different than my perspective. But the important thing is that we're working together. I think the idea is to get people to a better place for them. It's not necessarily the same, and that's important. Would you agree with that, Aurora?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you see people, they're looking for answers, and instead of forcing your narrative on them, it's very big for me, and I come across that all the time. A lot of it comes with the evangelizing, in religious traditions and things.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally have to just say, like, guys, just relax for a minute, please. You got to understand who I am, where I'm coming from. I understand that, the best way to phrase it is, this is what I believe. And here's my supporting evidence. Here's my testimony. And then you leave it alone. You literally, you leave it alone. You leave it in front of them. If they want to contact you, more than a couple times, if you say, hey, how's it going? Like, can I help you with it? More than a couple times, I guarantee you that person's going to get irritated. And that's something we need to be aware of. Like, just give people their distance, give people their space. Definitely share what you believe, and if they seem receptive to it, that's a key for me. Then share it with them. But if they don't, it's time to back off and just let them live their life.
And one of the reasons I think why I'm so fascinated and drawn to one of the reasons to many of like the ancient scriptures and holy texts is that you can really understand that people they have the same core desires. They have, I think at the core, everybody really, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, and we want to experience love in its purest form. And so what's been so amazing about studying these ancient scriptures is that, and texts of different kind, is that you can really see things from a far more holistic perspective. And that way, when you do have those conversations, it's like learning how to just kind of weave together what is applicable for that person. And I'm not saying to like, you know, make them feel better or something like that, but just to realize that we all have similar desires, but we all kind of speak a different language. And so to learn all of these different perspectives kind of helps us to bridge that gap of culture and language where we can harmonize much easier, in that way. That's just been my experience. But and the other thing too is like even among my clients, and I say this all the time because it's so true, is that I've never ever had two sessions that are exactly alike because everyone is so unique. Everyone is so different. And we're all so individual that it's not a one size fits all kind of experience when you're doing intuitive work with people, when you're doing body work with people or hypnosis or whatever it is that you do or whatever it is that, a colleague, friend of ours does. It doesn't matter. Like if we're really, I think, serving them in the best way possible, we're going to create the container to be completely present to receive where it is that they're at in that very moment, so that we're just being essentially vessels for the divine, the higher presence to work through us and to deliver whatever it is in that specific way that needs to be delivered for them. So, or not, because like as you were saying, sometimes it's actually that you're not a right fit, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that's really well said. I like the vessel term because, or the other one I use sometimes is like a conduit, and or a channel even, if you want to use that term. You just you have to give people the space to express themselves, and we're all different. We all come here with we'll get into past lives in a minute. I believe personally that we all come here with different past lives. It's definitely possible some of us are brand new on Earth, in fact, technically anything is possible. There's all kinds of ways to get here. There's you can talk about like direct manifestation in physical form. You can talk about portals and wormholes. You can talk about UFOs, spaceships coming here, delivering people. A lot of the traditions talk about their gods coming here to individually escort groups of people to their homeland, what they call their homeland. So I just leave it wide open, and I go with, I'm obviously a scientist, so I go with what I see with data. And but it's data with, in terms of physical sciences, it's also data with spiritual sciences such as astrology, and even stuff like reincarnation and past lives. Like, I want to see something where I feel strongly that is the case. If someone says, "Oh, I was reincarnated as this" or whatever, okay, well, let me get to know you, let me feel that around, and I'll see what I come up with. I keep it. One of my friend Laura Lee Potvin, the Angel Rock, she has a show on UPRN radio that I sometimes appear with her on. She says, you have to just you kind of have to see how it goes. You have to be open to the experience, and then if it's meant to happen, it will happen, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's the thing for me, it's just amazing that it takes this long to meet people in my age bracket that I don't have to like explain that. I just basically offer it, and it makes sense because it is common sense. It's common sense to me in terms of, let's figure out where people are at, and we'll meet them there, and then we'll do what we need to get people to a better place. And my big thing too, Aurora, you probably are aware of this, I'm sure, from knowing me for a while and my shows and everything, is that it is the utmost importance to me to establish the sciences, specifically the ancient sciences, establish them correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, I mean, okay, can it be tested? Can you get the evidence? Can you draw fair conclusions that are based on good logic and reasoning and all this stuff? And by all means, if I'm off base or if something seems off, please send me a message. I'm happy to look at the information and see if it can fit, or if I feel like I'm off base, and I'm very objective. Like, it's not about what I think it is. It's about what it actually is. So if I'm wrong, I'll raise my hand. I'll probably laugh about it. Be like, "Man, you got me today. You actually did it better." And I'll probably shake their hand, and we're good. That's called a mature human, in my opinion.
That's the only way. That's the only way we can grow, right, and learn.
Oh yeah.
And without that, we really aren't being scientific at all if we're not willing to be flexible in our hardwired belief systems. It's like you kind of have to loosen up a little bit, and to be able, like you said, be able to admit when you're wrong, because you can't grow, you can't become better if you aren't willing to see other possibilities. I mean, that's how we're given new information. That's how we evolve. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And as I was saying too, is that like, I established a discipline. I do the best possible job I can. I'm not above critique. I'm happy to entertain other people's ideas about things, especially with good evidence. If you want to impress me, guys, give me good evidence, and then I will be happy. I'll probably contact you. Be like, "Great job," But for me, what it is that I want to be a place for people to come to if you want the high-level spiritual science of how things work. Which is quantum physics, it's the chakra system, it's the esoteric medicine, Eastern medicine concepts, and of course it's astrology, among other things, astral travel, stuff like that. Because there are, the spiritual realm has to interface with the physical realm, because we have a body in this incarnation. Incarnation means in the flesh, essentially. So if it has to go through some kind of a physiological conduit or channel, then let's try to establish what that is. Where is that channel coming into? It's really basic science, and I've just been really, really let down, truly, when I look at people and how they go about things. Leave your own opinion at the doorstep. You're doing science that does not belong in there. You can have a feeling, but you know what? I mean, I think I do better than 50% for sure, but I go in all the time, especially when I'm traveling and I'm trying to feel energy in the land, different places in the United States and everything. I have been shocked at how incorrect I've been. Maybe even 25% of the time. I'm like, wow, I was completely wrong about that. And actually, one of the examples we had a show with Karen as well that Aurora was on. We were talking about ancient Wisconsin. This is on the Aliens and Astrology podcast that me and Karen do. And the man mound in Wisconsin outside Baraboo, before I went to Wisconsin, and Aurora spent a lot of time growing up there. And so I asked her, because I had never been to some of these ancient sites in southern Wisconsin. So I said, all right, you know what? I've seen Man Mound on Ancient Aliens. I don't feel great about it. Please tell me that I'm wrong, because I want to go there. But I see that nowadays I don't like to go to places that I know have questionable, strange energy, because I've had, quite frankly, I've had a lot of experiences with that stuff. I don't really care to do that anymore. I want good things, and I'm trying to put out positive things. But Aurora said, no, it's great energy. I said, wow, I'm completely wrong about that then. And sure enough, I got there. Yeah, there's nothing weird at all. Nothing weird at all. But it's still, the thing about it, it's an anthropomorphic figure of a human, and it looks like it has like wings on its head that come out the side of it. So it's a little weird. But, if it, just the fact that something looks strange, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's bad energy. And that's something that I've had to learn over and over again. We just have, and again, it's something, hey, I don't know what this being is. I don't know where they came from, but I'd like to know about it. And especially if they're going to be benevolent and they have good energy, then we all have the right to appear how we want to appear. I think you'd agree with that, Aurora.
Yeah, and I to add to that too, I would say that, I think one of the things that really can affect how we think about anything, including past lives that we're going to get into, and anything else, is that if you are in a culture, or you are in a family, or you are in a religion that has kind of a little bit more narrow ideas about things, or they're not as open-minded, or they've painted a picture about a certain place, modality, whatever the case, that creates what I call, people will say like a field or a container. I like to call it an agreement field, because you are basically creating a container within the field that everyone then agrees to and goes, yep, this is what we believe. And then, without even questioning it, without even diving into it, without exploring any of it, there's just this sort of unspoken agreement. And that can be passed down through our DNA, that can be passed down through past lives, and so it's life is just such a process of peeling off the layers and diving deeper and deeper within, and really getting into that self-inquiry to see where we've limited ourselves, because even the smallest little suggestion from who knows when, who knows where, can shift our ability to perceive the truth of something and its beauty, rather than seeing it as something that, has been defined by a culture or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We can define it for ourselves, especially if we're paying attention, and we have to be open to the possibilities. If you want to understand something, that's when learning and growth stop. The minute you say, oh, I don't need this anymore, I already know this. Well, I am surprised every day. And guess what? I read every day, and I watch videos, educational videos, every single day of the year. And I'm networking with people every day, and I'm still learning tons of stuff. Just when you think you understand what you need, well, the baseline stuff doesn't disappear, which is what's nice, Aurora, because I'm not grasping for straws saying, oh, like maybe astrology is not real. No, it's 100% real. It's the basis science of the solar system. It's the reason that the seasons happen. Even if you don't want to talk about characteristics, that make people a certain way mentally or spiritually, that's how the cycle of the sun works. You can see it moving through the sky like that, and being in the different signs and everything. So, again, just to follow up too on, and you said that very well, what you said was great. But establishing the baseline sciences, the baseline information, so that you can actually build off of a legitimate structure. So when you're looking ahead, it's not like, oh, I'm still grasping at straws. I don't know where this puzzle piece fits. Well, most of the time, I have a really good idea of where it fits, because I have the grid work established really well. And it took a long and very uncomfortable periods for me to be able to incorporate all these things, astrology, some of the Eastern medicine concepts, which are radically different from what they teach in North America. It talks about the spiritual life, in addition to your physical organs and things like that, and how they're actually related. So in any case, as I go into situations, I have the grid work behind me so that I have a good framework for knowing what I'm dealing with. And then I have an idea of where to place it. And it's always fluid. And sometimes it's a weird part too. Sometimes things can actually change in unexpected ways. And when that happens, sometimes I have to throw things out the window and be like, okay, well, it looked like it was correct for 2 months or 3 months. Now I have other information that's telling me either that it's not correct or that it's partially correct, in which case, I just go with what I have to go with. But the thing is for me is that I want there to be solid frameworks. For instance, what you do with sound healing is absolutely phenomenal. When you're on Karen's show, the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, my co-host, the visual combination with the audio, I really felt like I was transported back in time. And it was like a mini vacation. Aurora. It was so great. And it was positive energy, all good things. It makes you feel, and Karen too. I mean, Karen was amazed how relaxed she felt at the end and happy and everything, and just like pleasant. That is a positive, legitimate modality, for healing. And if you want to know that, then just play one of Aurora's videos and see how you feel. If you feel good, then it obviously worked, So that's something. I don't do sound. I am a musician. I haven't played in a while. But the thing about it is that no matter what it is, if it works, then it works. And it doesn't matter if I don't spend all my time with it. When I see someone doing a good job and it does work, then it's 100% on the table for me now. That's something where if someone said, hey, you know what, Dave, I'm not ready for the high sciences right now, but I'd really just like some sound healing or some aromatherapy. Can you send me to someone? And I would send them to Aurora, because it's a place to go to, and it's a legitimate field, and there are real effects, and people they have good experiences with it. So again, it's about placing people where they need to be. And if I don't get an inquiry for 3 weeks, okay, everyone that knows me knows what I do, and they know the level of quality, and they know the level of organization. And they know that I'm able to pivot very fast if I'm trying to figure out something, because I have the training to do that, because I spent a lot of time with it. And if people are ready for that, they know where I am. If they're not, okay, fine. I'm not going anywhere though. And I just want people to know that there's people, especially in our age bracket, or because we are the future. I mean, we're the current too, but we're also the leaders of the future as well. And some of, when we get into our, say, 50s and 60s and things. So I'm actually really encouraged, because even if it's a couple people, you know what, that's fine. If I have to get on TikTok in the future, okay, fine. Not my thing, but if the younger generations, if that's their thing, okay, I get that. And I need to meet people where they're at. And I think we all do, try to develop the ideas and everything. But yeah, no, it's not good. Good.
Yeah, I'm really surprised and delighted actually at how many more young people I'm seeing today interested in spirituality and, original modalities. I'm not gonna, I feel like when people are like progressive, it kind of, these are original people. But anyway, it just really lights me up, because when I can't speak for you. I don't know where you were at specifically, around 18, 19, 20, but I dove in really early on, and there was no one my age that was diving into the kind of stuff that I was reading, the stuff I was exploring, the stuff I was learning. Nobody. And for me, some of my best friends were in their 60s at that point, and they were my mentors, and I'm so grateful that they showed up. It's like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and they did. And I'm so grateful that they did, and they continue to. And I think that as long as we show up and we have an open heart and open mind and we're ready, the right people will come into our path, and hopefully Dave, you and myself and Karen and other people in our field can continue to be of support for people that are just kind of, waking up and tuning into alternative views and different dimensions of reality. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's nice to have the spread of different age groups too,
yes.
I'm happy to have different perspectives, but taking it into the future, I do things I do things a little differently. I'm very, very direct, let's get to the point. I hear people, I feel for people, but it's all gonna, whichever way you slice it, it's going to require action, so figure out which action you want to take and start to move towards that. And I'll fully support you the whole way, but um that's the thing. That's the thing for me. And you mentioned 18 and 19, and like senior year of high school or freshman year of college. And I always wanted just give me the answer. I'm not going to play. I'm not playing a game. Okay, I'm not doing that. So
Yeah.
if I ask a question, don't beat around the bush. If you don't know it, have the humility to say I don't know. If you're intelligent enough, maybe you can figure it out and get back to me. That would be awesome. But if not, it's okay. Fine.
Yeah.
But just like if you don't understand it, then then you shouldn't be like saying it as if you know it. And that's one of the things that really frustrated me when I was young, because a lot of the adults, I'm sorry guys, when I had hard questions, they had atrocious answers, and that's an understatement. I'm like, I can't believe some of these people are the people who claim that they know what they're doing, especially in the spiritual field. There's not as many.
Yeah.
I feel. And it's important to have a good feel for it. You need to have the personal experience so that you have some legitimacy when you talk about it. But yeah, I was 18, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's funny when you said 18, 19, I was literally just going to say the 18. I was going to talk about that age bracket because I needed this information. The stuff that I present now, the stuff Aurora presents, the stuff that Karen presents. I was ready when I was 18. But guess what? I couldn't find anyone. I didn't even know that's what I needed. I mean, YouTube was not at near the level it is now. I think it was up, but probably barely. Um, Around like 2005. But the point is that we need to make good information accessible to people, and it could have saved me 15 years of suffering, literally, if I had
Mhm.
this information. Oh, why can't I figure this out? Oh, why is this person treating me this way? Well, look at their sign. No one said that to me, Aurora, not one time. Dave, I dated someone when I was 16, 17. She was into astrology. We were both juniors in high school, but like the hobby type of astrology, not the science
Right.
type of astrology. And
Right.
at the time, I wasn't really interested in that. I probably didn't really even think it was real. I thought it was something for fun. But the reason for that is because it wasn't presented ever as a science, ever. And there was never anyone to actually explain that. So one of the things I've suggested, I'm like, okay, if you're going to teach Civil War history, then you're also going to do a week of astrology. Okay, because that's part of the ancient world. That's part of our tradition. I don't care if you don't think it's real. Maybe I don't think the Civil War was real. I wasn't here to see it. I wasn't born. I'm not,
Right.
and I do believe it happened. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is like you have to engage the topic. You have to actually address it and talk about it in the forefront. You have to give ways for people to see the proof. Like I went to the Gettysburg battlefield on my past trip, and that seemed pretty real to me. I wasn't there to see it, but when you see all the monuments and you see all the write-ups and everything and the gravestones and the markers, it's
Mm.
like if you talk about trying to figure out if something happened or not, to the extent of um, ground that covered, it would be ridiculous to waste your time trying to fabricate something that big. But I mean, it's over all the hills and the countryside and everything around Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The battle that happened there. So anyway, I needed this information when I was young. I probably would have been ready even before that, maybe 16, like sophomore or junior in high school.
Mhm.
But the are not there to do it. And the other thing too is again, like if people don't feel comfortable with you as a person, or if they don't feel like you're hearing them out and listening to them, or if you feel like you're being judged, it doesn't matter if you know what you're talking about. I see people on podcasts all the time, and I'm like, you know what? You know your material, but I actually don't really like you. And I'm not being mean about that. I'm just saying, like, I don't feel comfortable really talking and sharing with you because either I feel judgmental vibes coming from you. I
Yeah.
feel like you're condescending to someone, and I don't care. I'm not going to go to, I'm not paying you money to do that. I'll go to someone who's been doing it for half the time you have. And if they're patient and kind, I'm going to them, man. And I'm going to send all my friends to them. But people better start waking up if as we're moving into the future here. A lot of people draw very hard lines nowadays. And it's all you have to do is be a good person, guys. You know, seriously.
That's the truth.
But that's the key.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and it, I think it's getting harder and harder for people to try and be inauthentic. So these people that show up, and they have things that they want to teach or share, it's harder to hide because so many of us we've had all of these activations occur throughout our lives that, we're so much more tuned in, turned on, psychically and intuitively than even just 10 years ago. So, when people come out and they have all this information, but there's all these inauthentic bits, it's like, oh, wow, I have to sift through all that. And then it's kind of a turnoff to even want to listen to that person. Then not to get too derailed, but it kind of goes hand in hand with people that are, they're considered gurus or master teachers, whatever. And then they go out and they're sharing these amazing messages, beautiful teachings that really are life-changing. They really are like core heart expanding teachings. But then when they do something that's a little bit more on the human side and they maybe falter, and I'm not going to name names, but we all know that there are people out there who have done this. Unfortunately, all of those beautiful teachings are then smeared and discredited. And so that's the other point of this that I would like to say just in this conversation, that it's important to discern, like, yes, there's the messenger, and maybe I don't want to follow that person anymore, but the teachings that resonated, I'm going to hang on to those because they meant something to me. And so to just be discerning of like what in your energetic field, in your body, in your soul, you feel a yes to, like go toward that. And what doesn't feel right, like leave that out, and sometimes that means, like I said, keep something about the teaching that resonates with you if that helps you to continue your expansion process, and then leave the rest.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, there are a couple podcasts I've really pared down the number just because I don't want to deal with it. But there are some podcasts that I watch, some of them fairly frequently, some of them not very frequently, that I have a hard time watching because, again, I'm not trying to put anyone under the bus. I'm just saying what it is. I'm sorry. It is what I feel. I don't like listening to the person, but they do have sometimes pretty good information. And so in that case, in the reason why I don't like listening to some of these people, guys, it's the same thing. So, let's make this for me, and I think Aurora will probably agree with me. Let's make this clear: is that, again, don't be inauthentic. If I see any kind of pretense or I feel like you're being fake, I'm gonna be like, no, done. And then, guys, you just lost your opportunity. Someone that's interested in these topics and will engage with you. Well, I'm not interested anymore. That's number one. Number two is a lack of humility and lack of owning up to what you do and what you say. That's massive for me. You have to be accountable for what you're doing, what you're saying. And then the other one is, like Aurora said, it's your tone, it's your vibe or your aura, your ambiance, whatever it is. And that comes a lot with energy work and just being focused and having goodness in your heart, because people can feel that. But I run into all kinds of different situations, and I will listen. I'm mature enough to understand that sometimes I need the information, even though if I don't like the presentation. And you can separate them if you have to, but ideally, I'm trying to form a community where we can have both of those things at the same time. Meaning that, like, you have good people who are authentic, who also know what they're doing really well and are really supportive, and they feel comfortable when they talk to you. I want it to be a very low stress situation for people. Because life is not supposed to be so rigid and like scary, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We barely have any time here as it is, So I'm really encouraged. I think we're doing it. And when I first met Aurora, I said that we're going to be the new wave, And it's I'm still looking for other people in our age bracket And I have to be honest, I haven't really found a whole lot, you know, and I try to network all the time, but it's those two things I'm looking for. It's the authenticity and it's the ability. You have to be able to do what you're doing really well, and you have to be a real person, and you have to have humility. You know, I can't even believe I have to talk about this stuff, you know, and I'm probably one of the most to the point people you're ever going to meet. For my listeners, probably already know that. But the point is that there's a reason for that, because generally people want to know what it is. Sometimes it might hurt, you know, I try to be nice as possible, but I'm also not going to let things happen that shouldn't be happening. And I'm not going to let, if I know it to be incorrect, I'm not going to let incorrect information get out there. So if someone says, well, this was this, I'm like, are you sure about that, man? I'm actually not sure about that. You know, we should probably look it up. And if they have the humility, we look, and I'm just saying, because I don't think that's correct. I'm not saying like you look like I'm not saying the person looks like an idiot. I'm not trying to make them embarrassed. I'm just saying, let's get the information correct. And then if they said, no, actually, Dave, it was that, I'd be like, oh man, my bad. But I'm still glad that I said it.
You know, here's a great example too, like in more mainstream platforms, like you see Joe Rogan, for example, when he's doing his podcast, he doesn't hesitate to question people, to fact check things, but not through fact checkers, but rather him doing his own research, you know, or having the research done right there while they're doing podcasts, so that they're like, okay, let's dig into this so that we can verify, where did this come from, you know, and is it true, so that we can move, and not to like, you know, burst someone's bubble or anything like that, but like, let's get the facts so that everyone that we're educating here today, you know, feels like they can walk away with something that they've learned. And even then, you know, just because you find something on the internet or in a dictionary or whatever, or even in a medical book, does not mean it's true. It means that at that time in history, that's the best that people or science could do to identify something. So we just do the best that we can do in the moment. And because you know what? We live in such a holographic quantum universe, and it's ever shifting, ebbing, flowing based on how we interact with it. So, you know, I think, like you said, humility is like one of the best qualities that we can have, you know, as a teacher, as a parent, Lord knows, uh, you know, but yeah, just moving forward, it's like, it's huge. It's huge to, you know, see it really as like, you know, coming together like on a level playing field so that we can really support each other in expansion as best as we can.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. We're on the same page, you know, and that's why we're friends, and that's why, of course, I invited Aurora on my show. You know, one of the things for my podcast too going forward here is that you know, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna invite people that I like on my show, because you're a real person. You know, you're not above correction or critique if it comes to that, and just so we can get clear information. And the other thing is that we need to form a strong community. And hey, if there's only a few of us, or if there's only a handful, okay, fine. You know, but at least I feel good about who's doing it, so we can do it correctly. I'm never worried about astrology again. You know, if people want to do astrology, you know who to come to. You know, that was given to me. I didn't want to do it. It was given to me as a science. I wasn't even interested in it. It's hard to believe this stuff. It really is, because of how long I've been doing it for now. But the fact is that I was open to it. And actually, the reason I was open to it is because my friend Santos Bonacci, who interestingly I just had a dream about last night, actually. Maybe that's probably a good sign. Um, he is a wonderful astrologer. He's a big flat earth proponent, sovereign rights of human beings, all this kind of stuff, exposing things. And the thing is that I was looking for information about the human body, about the esoteric aspects, the Eastern teachings, obviously things like chakras, the cerebrospinal fluid, how the spirit lives in the cerebrospinal fluid, all these things. I found this video. It literally completely changed my life. Guess when I need to see that? When I was about 16. And it wasn't until I was 25. That's a problem. That is a serious problem, because if the people are ready, they need to be able to find what they're looking for. And that's, you know, that's what I've set out to do. But the point is that on the side, he had videos about astrology. And since he did such a good job with the esoteric medicine aspect, things I could not believe what I was seeing. I literally was speechless for like 2 months. I couldn't even like talk. my brain completely, like everything was, all the circuits were cut. Everything had to be restructured. Everything I'd ever learned about religion and science and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just from, well, it was like a 2-part video, but you know, an hour and a half each. It's like 3 hours of a video. It completely changed my life. So since he did such a good job, since he's an Aries, very to the point, you know, which is what I like. I like the information to be put right in front of me, and then don't try to convince me. Just leave it there. I can handle it. I'll figure it out. You know, but give me the information. I'm happy to have the information. I can't stand that when people are like, you know, look at this. Look, you get that. Yeah, I get it, man. Just keep going. You know, I want to see what you're talking about. Let's follow the train of thought all the way through. We'll get to the point we need to be at. So my point is that he did such a good job on one of his videos. I liked him. He's authentic. He's trying to help people. I'm all in with that. So I saw his other videos about astrology, and I said, since he did such a good job, and since I like him, I'm going to give this a chance. And guess what? That changed my life too. And then when I realized that it was a science, and in the ancient world it was taught as a science, and that's the way that I teach it now, it's the proper way to teach it, then I didn't have a choice. I actually did not, as a good scientist, this is what's amazing about this. I don't do it because I like it. I mean, it is cool. It's fascinating. It's a way we're going to get into in a minute here. It's a way to deliver karma and to clear karmic balances and all this stuff when you come onto the earth. But you know, it wasn't something I saw it. But when you see the information and the information is correct and it's repeatable information, if you're a good scientist, you have to go with that. You have to go with that, guys. This is not my opinion. I want to understand what I'm working with so that we can try to work with Mother Nature and with the system instead of being opposed to it, in which case we're going to have all kinds of problems. And we know what happens when we go against natural cycles and systems. It never goes well. I guarantee that. So it's working with what we have. And then, you know what? If one day I get a chance to create my own solar system, because I do believe we're all creators, I think Aurora agrees we're all creators,
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm not overly impressed with the astrology system, to be honest with you. It is very, very detailed. But what I'm more interested in, this will always be where I stand. I'm interested in what lives in your heart every day, even if you're not a perfect human. You know that I'm trying to do my best. I'm interested in, if I did something wrong, hearing about it from people, hearing that it hurt them and I did something incorrectly. Then I make better choices in the future if I really mean what I said. And then the actions that you take come from the quality of the heart.
Yeah.
That's seriously, it's the only thing I actually care about. I don't even care about any of the sciences and stuff like that. I care about, am I living somewhere where I feel good, I feel happy, and people are treating each other well? That's the only thing I care about. Unfortunately, since the Earth system is so complex, I've had to get into a lot of the sciences to get to that point. But the whole goal is, of course, the ascension process, which is why we were both at that conference in April, because
Yeah.
the point is to get to that better place. And I believe it can. I believe it can be on Earth, as you know, as was stated in Aurora's bio. But I also believe it can be in higher dimensions. It can even be out of our solar system and out of our galaxy. There's not really limits.
Yeah.
So we just need to keep the conversation going, you know, and we can get somewhere, have the humility, and just be relaxed about it. And make people feel comfortable, you know, to be talking with you and in your presence. And when you figure that out, then people are going to listen to you first of all, probably because they like you. And even if you're, this is what's amazing, and I'm not an exception to this. Even if I don't like a topic, if someone is nice and excited about it, I like the topic. I like the topic now suddenly because I like them and I like how they're presenting it. I'll watch a video about, I mean, actually, I don't mind gardening. I've done a lot of it in the past, especially like vegetable gardening. But I'll watch a video about gardening. I'll watch like 2 hours of that if I like the person. I might even invite them on my show because I like them, because they're nice and they're authentic. That's all it takes for me, guys. It's not that hard to understand. You know, and if I'm not responding to someone, well, guess what? There's probably a reason. In fact, not probably. There is a reason for that, and I make it clear to them. I actually don't. You know, again, very direct. I'll be like, "This is why I'm not talking to you." Okay, that's offensive behavior. You don't do that as a human. And if you think that's okay, dude, then we're gonna be done talking. You know, it's very, very simple. I'm very, very simple. You know where I stand. That way, if you do something that you know I'm not cool with, you know, I might not even respond at all, especially if I've issued a warning a few times. and you know me, Aurora, I'm a very reasonable person. I'm a very nice person, very reasonable. But don't be playing games. We're gonna be done if you start doing that. And I think you're the same way, actually.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, even, and I know people, this is kind of a diluted conversation about the law of attraction, but only because it's gotten very watered down, very misunderstood in a lot of ways. But I think there's something that's should be said about, Hermetic law and things like that, is that, when you find yourself being a people pleaser, or working so hard at trying to keep up a persona, or you're working harder at trying to uphold something that's not real, the universe is going to continue, because of laws of polarity, laws of magnetics, law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, of all of these different laws that are at work or at play. um, they don't stop just because you're not thinking about them. They're always working. They're always working. So we can either be on autopilot and let life happen to us, or we can be conscious or conscientious of our thoughts, our actions, our feelings, our words, and be accountable and responsible of what it is that we're creating, what it is that we're attracting. And every time that we're, doing something or saying something that is trying to, you think that this is what the public or your clients want you to see, or your neighbor wants you to see, or whatever. Every time that you're not being yourself, the universe is just giving you more of what you don't want, because the universe goes, oh, well, this is who you are, right? So this is what I'm giving you. And then people are like, why am I so upset? Why am I so unfulfilled? Why am I so unsatisfied? Why am I so depressed? Because you're not being you. You're not being your true self. And that's, if there's one thing that we're here to be, is to be us as the divine created us. That's the gift of who we are. So yeah.
I wish it was easier too. I mean, there's a lot of things that make it a lot more complex. Of course, astrology is the big one, but also physiology. I mean, I think we've all seen it. We've all known people where someone goes through a serious medical condition, or they're going through a hard time physically or medically, and then they become a different person. Well, that's because physiology is tied into spirituality. It's all tied together. And when you get to a certain point, it's very hard to express what's in your heart because you don't have the strength. And when you talk about this, there's a lot of things I believe that are kind of dormant DNA, or kind of some of the hidden parts of you. A lot of it comes through past lives. I fully believe that. And when your energy drops enough in your body, some of those things start to come to the surface. So if you used to be a very pleasant person, well, maybe in some of your lower energy gradients in your past lives, you weren't that pleasant. So then, it's all stored in your DNA. I mean, all the memories and all this stuff, and in the Akasha and the ether and all this. So it's part of your physical structure. You might not see it all the time, but when your energy gradient in your body drops to that level, well, suddenly now this different person pops out, because that's one of your other, in my belief, one of your other experiences and incarnations, and it's stored in your memory. And if you don't want that to happen, you have to do energy work, which Aurora does a wonderful job with that as well. I do energy work as well. And that will get the energy up so that your cells are happy, you can focus.
Yeah. And I think, that's a perfect segue really into what it is that we're talking about, or what we came to talk about. I know we've been kibitzing and talking about all kinds of things, but I think it's all perfect, and it's all in alignment, because I think it all matters. Everything that we've been talking about today is really, really important. But I love what you just described, because I did eventually migrate into the field of hypnosis, and I'm going to be working with Karen next month, doing a podcast or a show on hypnosis. And there is some blending of these topics. There is some overlap, but really, when it comes down to it, they are two completely different conversations. But there is going to be a little bit of bleed over. But here's the thing. Before I ever even got into the field of hypnosis, that's when I had my most powerful past life experiences, because they were spontaneous remembering. They weren't, I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't seeking it out. I wasn't going into regression looking for some kind of visionary experience to come to me. This started coming to me when I was probably 3 and 4 years old, as early as I can remember. And that's what sticks out as so freaking powerful, because it came and found me. I wasn't looking for it, you know, and that's what told me there's something to this, because, you know, at that age, I was growing up in a very straight-laced Christian Southern Baptist household, and it wasn't even part of our belief or conversation that reincarnation or past lives even existed. So the interesting thing about that is that, you know, when I was having these memories, they were also coming back to me in the form of dreams. I had no idea what I was looking at. I just thought, oh, I'm just seeing something. Maybe I saw this on TV. Maybe it was from a movie, or maybe I'm just making, maybe it's just my imagination. Like, I didn't have a frame of reference to go, oh, like this is a memory. It clearly felt like a memory, but I'm like, I've never been to this place though. It doesn't make any sense. And I had an awareness that like this place, that one of the first places that I had seen that was really loud in my periphery as a kid, it didn't really fully register until later on. And so what I came prepared to talk about today, because I know there are so many amazing stories about other people and past life experiences. There's a story about a little boy, I believe, that was a fighter pilot, and he passed away and he was reincarnated. I think, I don't know if it was the same family or a different family, but then he ended up like, I don't know. But anyway.
That was the one with World War II, wasn't it? That he got
Yeah,
shot down. And then he was like a kid and he was telling his mother, hey, when I was a pilot and I got shot down, mother was like, what are you talking about? Well, I mean, that, you know, these things don't, I agree with you. These things generally do not come out of nowhere. There's
yeah,
when kids come in to the world and they have these like really focused, disciplined interests in very like niche topics, you know, like, why are you upset? You know, why do you spend all of your time like carving wood? Why is that what you, no one in our family does that. Why are you doing that? You know? Well,
yeah,
if you really think about it, you can actually figure out why you come in with this stuff. And most of the time, in my opinion, it is because of your previous experiences.
yes, totally. And really, like, anyone listening to this, I encourage all of you, if you haven't heard these stories, like, go check out, just go start looking stuff up, because there's such amazing stories, especially coming from children that are later confirmed that they look this stuff up. They're even like names came to them. You know, that's the whole lineage of the Dalai Lama, that kind of thing is all about reincarnation and stuff like that as well. There's so many traditions where this is alive and well. But, you know, I didn't come here today to talk about things outside of the realm of my own experience. So, you know, while those stories are incredible, it's, for me, it's still a third party story. It's, you know, it's anecdotal on my part because I can't verify that for myself, but what I can verify is my own experience. And so, just disclaimer for everyone listening to what I'm about to share is that this is the first time I'm sharing this story on a public forum, and I'm not looking for accolades. I don't, and this is not a popularity contest. I'm only sharing this because it changed my life. So, you know, I don't need, I don't need the verification. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody believe me. Um, but I'm just sharing because I feel like that's the best thing that we can do, is just like connect the dots in these types of experiences and see like, where is there overlap? How do our stories compare? Like, and sometimes we find that we incarnate and we find our tribe, we find the same people that we've lived lives with and had other experiences with, you know, maybe multiple times. And, you know, a lot of that can be triggered and awakened by meeting people again for the first time, where you like, oh my gosh, I know that person. You know, I wouldn't doubt, Dave, if you and I have had some of that as well.
I think actually probably Mesopotamia, if I had to make a guess. And maybe also the Middle East, like around the Israel area, modern day Israel. I wouldn't be surprised either. Or even Ireland, I wouldn't be surprised. Between those three.
That would be really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's super fascinating. And at this point in my life, I've had so many different recalls that I mean, I could write books on all of this. Part of it is partially due to the fact that I have started, you know, I've started utilizing hypnosis in my life more regularly. And so that's something that I've been able to kind of go in and bring things back that I've remembered bits and pieces of, or even things that I didn't remember at all. And suddenly, like, you know, between 3 sessions, there was one lifetime that like all of the sort of missing pieces were sort of filled in, but they were all sessions that were conducted, each of them by a different person, like my hypnotist that put me under. Each person was different, but each time I got a little bit more information. So it was interesting. But I mean, again, I'm going to go back to the beginning because this first experience that I had was so life-changing. It was part of my awakening, really. And I had a lot of bizarre things going on as a child, in terms of like contact experiences and kind of paranormal-ish experiences, but I didn't really attribute these memories and these dreams to anything like that until I was older. So when I was a kid, I used to have these dreams, and visions of like waking up, getting out of bed, going into my closet, and it was sort of like going through The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you know, the closet where you kind of go through there. But when I got on the other side of the closet, I was in this other house. And so I'm exploring this house. There's all of these elaborate, like the construction, the architecture was so elaborate, so bizarre, hallways going every which direction, all kinds of bizarre looking rooms, windows, stairways that led to the ceiling, doorways that like opened to a huge like drop off, just bizarre things. And every time that I was there, I felt like I was constantly kind of trying to get away from something, like I had anxiety. And I didn't ever understand what was going on in those visions or the dream. I just knew like it felt like I was doing this for a reason, and I was part of the reason why this house and this architecture was the way that it was. But I still kind of didn't necessarily feel safe in my home, in my own space. And even though I could feel that there were like lots of people in there, I also felt like it was full in a way that I couldn't see, like spirits, like that I was not aware of them. So none of that registered until I was about, gosh, I want to say I was probably 16 or 17 years old. I saw a commercial on the History Channel, and it was some ghost hunters show, and they were doing a show on the Winchester House. And when they,
Topic.
what's that?
A fascinating topic or fascinating house.
So when I saw some of the footage on that commercial, it was like I felt like I had seen a ghost. Like my energy, like I just felt this like whoosh, just like this whoosh of energy came over me. Total recognition. I knew that was the house in all of the visions. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my house. And I was just like, I was stunned. I was in awe. I was a little bit terrified, but I was also like really excited. Like I felt almost obsessed because I was like, I have to know more about this. Like, this is going to answer a lot of questions for me. So, um, so I stuck around and I watched the show. And as I'm watching the show, my mom's in there with me. I'm over at my aunt's house and we're all watching the show together. And my mom's sitting in here with me. And I'm telling her step by step as they're going through the house, oh, when they turn this corner, I'm like, this is what's here, this is what's here, this is what's here. And I was talking to her about this earlier today. She just remembers just getting, her hair was just standing on end, just chills, just like, oh my gosh, this is kind of creeping me out a little bit. But it was creepy.
So you said it before they panned the camera.
Yeah.
And then that's what was there. The same thing that you said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was like all of these active memories that had been present in these dream states and vision states since I was like 3 years old were suddenly on the TV. I'm like, it was blowing my mind, but I was also really excited because I'm like, it wasn't fake. Like it wasn't my imagination. This was a real thing that happened. So I'm watching the show and there's like emotion attached to it. And I could just remember like certain things that they were saying um, on the show. Like I think there was even a medium on the show and he was saying certain things. And I'm like, that's not true. Just, or assumptions that they had made. And I'm like, and I could feel like an emotional reaction to some of the commentary of being like, you have no idea, like this isn't your house, get out. Like, and I'm like, why am I having this response? Well, obviously, like there was some connection. And even still to this day, I'm not going to try to claim 100% that I was Sarah Winchester, but I tell you that the experience that I had, I'm speechless. Like it to me, it proved to me that there was some kind of validation in the experience that I had. But of course, like I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. But anyway, so this story continues. So then I think probably a couple years had passed, and I still would have visions occasionally, but at that point, all of the things that I had felt, there was like suddenly a pouring in after I had seen the imagery on the television, like of the rooms of the house. All these memories started flooding back. I could remember my husband from that lifetime. I remembered having a child, and I remembered the child died. And then I was like suddenly getting all these other past life memories of every time that I had had a child and the child was either taken from me or died. Like it just triggered so many different memories that just started flooding in from that space. So, and there was so much emotion too, like it needed to be released from my cells. Like you're talking about, we have this cellular memory and it contains amazing messages and amazing things that can tell us the truth of who we are, where we've been, what we've done, even where we're going. But sometimes that cellular memory needs to be addressed so that it can be released from the body, because sometimes there's trauma that's stored in the cells along with the memory. And that's what I think is really important to let go of, because we can still have the impact and the benefit of having all of the permanent teachings, permanent lessons, and dharma that has been sort of built upon and has grown from all of these lifetimes. We're not losing that when we release the cellular memory. We're just releasing the trauma attached to it. But anyway, so moving forward from that place, I think it was a couple years later, I ended up meeting someone who I would eventually come to work with. Her and I had a business in Baraboo, actually, for several years. And when I think I had gone to visit her at her house. We were over at her house one night. Her daughter was there. We were all sitting around, and there was, I think I had seen that there was a commercial and they were doing another like ghost hunter type of show on the Winchester house. So I told her the story. I told her the connection that I had to it. And I was like, I'm really interested. But the interesting thing that they were doing that night was that they were going to hold a seance in the house. And it was all live. It was all on live TV. So this was going to be like a real-time broadcast. So I was very much interested to tune into it, to listen, and to see if there was kind of any interesting connection or correlation that happened during the show. So we're all over at her house and we turn on the TV and we're listening to it. And as they're going through the house, I'm seeing more imagery that the previous show didn't show me. And so much emotion was coming through. I mean, there was one point during the show where they hadn't, I don't think they had started. Oh, you know what? Yes. So the point where they start the seance and, and at this point, I had kind of broken away from the container of Christianity. Not that I was trying to like just jump into seances, but I was interested to see what was going to come out of this or how authentic it would be, because I knew what my experience felt like. And I was kind of like, part of me was a little bit like, okay, like, is this going to be real or what, So they start the seance and I just kind of go into this trance space and close my eyes. And I'm just kind of like being in the container with them. Suddenly, this super tall Native American comes in and he stands in front of me and he kneels down and he grabs my arms, and my eyes are closed the whole time, having this inward psychic experience. And my friend and her daughter are watching this happen, and they're seeing everything physically, like on the outside. They're seeing it happen.
This is in her house?
This is happening. This is in her house.
While you're watching the seance on TV?
Yes. So everything on TV at the time they were pretty quiet. They were still trying to contact the spirits or whatever. So part of the story is, just to put that on pause for a second, part of the story is that she was the heiress to the Winchester Rifle Company, that basically her father-in-law and her husband had passed away, and she was getting all of this money that she felt like was blood money. She didn't really want any part of it. So at one point she had gone to a psychic medium and they said, you need to go buy a ranch, go out to California and build a house for these spirits of the souls that have transitioned from the hand of the rifle. So she did. She picked up and she moved across the country all the way to San Jose, California, and basically started architecture, like started all of the building to create this house. But part of what it was is that, the architecture is so bizarre because all of it was done via her taking like a planchet, which is like, if you know anything about dowsing or pendulums or anything, it's like the eye of what people would call a Ouija board. But you have to think outside of the box of Ouija boards and contacting evil spirits and stuff like that. You have to realize that there's so much more potential through these mediums, just like using dowsing rods to find water. The dowsing rods aren't contacting evil spirits that help you find water. Like, you are working with earth energy, right? But you're also working with intention, and you are working with other dimensional aspects of being, of yourself, of your allies. So this is the same way that this works, and intention is everything. So you can still, I'm not advising people to go use this, because I think that sometimes there's better ways. And to me, after a long journey of using many different external tools, I've come to find that really the best tool is your inner knowing, because that's where the validation is really inside. So I don't necessarily like advise that people go out and try, Ouija boards and stuff, because you really have to be in a fully aligned space. You have to be in a state of purity, but anyway, getting back to that life,
know what you're doing. You know, you have to be
Yeah.
careful and to be sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the thing is that even if you have good intentions, sometimes the energy that you're connecting can be really nebulous, or they can kind of sway you in your decision making, and it just can take you for a ride, and it's not always dialed in. So you really, like, you have to be careful, and you want to surround yourself with people that can also help to really create a safe space that is like a sanctuary for the Most High. So that, I'll just leave it at that. So, but at this time, you know, she was on her own. She didn't have a lot of friends. She didn't have a lot of family. And she was just very experimental. And I've never seen any record of this, but I remember also being in connection with people from the Theosophist Society. So I think that that was happening with her, and that she would have them over into the space. Now, I can't say that that's true, but those are memories that have come back to me. Like the Order of the Golden Dawn, the people like that. But anyway, so so she would take these planchettes, and she would basically stick a pencil in the center of them, and she would do these blueprints by allowing that higher energy, or sometimes the spirits, to dictate what the house was to be built like. And even though the architecture is completely bizarre, somehow it all worked out. It all fit together. She was not an architect. You know, so it doesn't make any logical sense. That's the strange part. But somehow it all fit together.
Okay, because this house has got stairways leading to nowhere. It's got doors that are not actually doors and stuff like this, right?
Yes. Yeah. And also, she was obsessed with the number 13. So interestingly, I was born on the 13th. And she was born on the 13th as well. Now, some people say that that's debatable,
What
but
month was she born in? Do you remember?
what month?
Yeah.
July.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
have
Well,
the
that's
same birthday.
okay. Well, that's even more amazing. And actually, the other thing for me, I feel like the name Sarah. Well, first of all, I love that name. It's one of my favorite names. It's a very ancient name, obviously, but
Hmm.
I could see that fitting you very well. Actually, you know, it's one of these things that I well, you know, I'm also, of course, an intuitive as well, and you
Hmm.
have to kind of feel your way through things. You have to feel like, does it feel right? Does it feel like it makes sense? And
Yeah.
then if you can get supporting evidence, it's even better. You know, in terms of like what you were telling me, you already knew what was around that corner before the camera actually showed it. That's astonishing. How you guys can explain that? You know,
No,
it's
I mean,
amazing.
it's bizarre. And that's the thing, is like, you know, today I don't have any physical evidence other than my own story and my own experience. And that's why, you know, I've never shared it publicly before, because I don't need the criticism, you know, but I'm not basing me sharing this story today on fear, or, you know, fear of ridicule or anything like that. I'm just sharing from an open heart, because this is the wild experience that I've had. And I think other people deserve to be able to hear this and validate their own experiences, you
Definitely.
know, because we all have these experiences that don't necessarily have any logic to them or make any sense, but we know in our heart of hearts that it's real for us.
Yep.
So
One thing I was going to add really quickly, or if you don't mind, is that obviously there's a lot of spirits that have called that house their home. You know, that have, I guess, requested to have things built certain ways and things like that, so they feel comfortable. I suppose that's what it is. But
mhm.
you know, just to just to look at both sides, obviously, because you know, good science does that. I actually, first of all, I actually do believe you, because and even the things that Aurora has shared with me about myself, that she had, that there's no way we ever talked about, that they were accurate. And you know, that's the thing, is you put pieces together, you see, is this person credible? And then when that's the best part for me, is that now, like when you share your stories, I already know you were accurate what you said about me, so that it makes it a lot more likely for me that what you're saying is true, and also feeling it too. And I also know a little bit about the story, and I didn't actually even know this. First time we're talking about it's actually really amazing. But one of the things that I was going to say is there's two other things that I thought of. Is that Sarah, definitely, and especially with the birthdays being the same, that is amazing, absolutely astonishing. That's really, really good supporting evidence. The other part is that if you happen to potentially have been one of the spirits in the house, or one of the people, that was a victim of the Winchester production, then that's another way that you could have seen things, of course. And then there's one more thing I was thinking of. Well, there's actually two. There's the idea of the implanted memories, which a lot of my friends talk about on their other podcasts, meaning that it's not actually your memory, but it was given to you, or you had access to it. And that's one of the things that I teach about the Akashic record and the ether, the etheric grid, is that you can pull information, I believe, with permission. And I've actually had a lot of this in my life where I'm actually not sure if it's my memory or I'm actually just tapping into the grid, which has access to all of the memories. And that's something people have to contend with as well. What do you think about that, Aurora?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I said, I'm not attached to it having to be the truth that I was Sarah Winchester. But one thing that I do believe in that has been reoccurring evidence in my work with hypnosis and regression and things like that is that, when all of it is distilled, the same common denominator is that there's only one consciousness. And even though we have the experience of being these sort of fractalized, separate selves that have these sort of, experiences of taking one soul and going from lifetime to lifetime or incarnation to incarnation, if we're really only one consciousness, then what does that mean? That means that we've been all of it. I've been you, you've been me, sister, brother, mother, daughter, we've been all of them at one point or another, and we're all connected. And so we have that. And I think that this goes back to what you're saying about, connecting to the grid, is that, and especially if you've done the work to keep your psychic channels open, you could just be highly intuitive, tuning into something that has some value for you that maybe, your higher self, God essence, your guides, whatever the case is actually just trying to give you a piece of something to help you grow or to help you evolve or to whatever. Like, we don't know why we see the things that we see, but we can feel the impact of it. And I think that is what makes such a huge difference. So yeah, I'm not so attached to my story or identity that I'm clinging to one thing, because I know that, you've lived that life too. We've all been there. We've been Jesus. I know that's heretical to say, but all of these other stories, that's why when we hear so many different stories, we have emotional responses to them because we feel it. We know what it's like to connect to that story, to connect to that person, that lifetime, that soul spark, and to be there with them, see through their eyes, feel through their body. It's so palpable because we are connected. We can't not be connected.
Yeah, one of the things I feel about it too is that I've had several people say to me before, it sounds really strange, in the beginning, but they're like, yeah, this person or this person from history or some, one of these people, this is with the exact words, they let me be them for a little while, or they let me be them for this period of time. I've had I played computer games when I was a kid. I liked the adventure, mystery kind of games, and the ancient history style stuff. It was always very exciting for me. And there was one where talking about reincarnations, it really gets into astral travel too, but there's also the idea of things like walk-ins, where someone else, your spirit was replaced with someone else's spirit, and you had a contract, you agreed to do that, and then you get to leave your physical body and they enter your physical body. Very, very fascinating topic. And that can happen during your life, while you're alive. But in this particular game, I believe it was called Beyond Atlantis. Actually, it's of course, one of my favorite topics. I know you enjoy the topic as well.
Yeah.
And what happens is that this guy is he's like you could say he's like an initiate. He's trying to learn about the spiritual traditions, and he goes into a meditative state. I think there's crystals involved as well, which are obviously highly conductive, and they do store memory. And then what happens is he leaves his body, I suppose, in an etheric or astral body, and he travels. You see the screen pans across the world, and he travels across the oceans and stuff. And I'm talking about in his astral body, which is like your energetic imprint, not your physical body, but it's still essentially you.
Hmm.
Your body is still laying in the bed or whatever, or in a meditative position, and then your astral body is kind of like more like your spirit. It's closer to like your essence. It can detach the body from the body, not fully, because supposedly if that happens, that you actually will experience death, bodily death. It's
Hmm.
still attached. It's usually called the silver cord, which
Yep.
for me is actually the spinal cord because it's gray matter, and that's the whole point. Gray and silver.
Hmm.
So and then that bridges the dimensions along your chakra system, which is attached to the spinal cord and all these things. But anyway, what happens is he goes into a different physical body, and you can see this happen. You see his like all you see, him. We're led to believe that he's like this a light body essentially. He looks like a flash of light in the form of a human, and then we see that light figure go into a physical body of this guy from ancient Ireland, and then of another guy who's like an Eskimo, and he lives that part of their life as them in their physical body. And so I mean, it gets into really intense quantum physics, and I absolutely love it. And for me, like just like you said, you're not attached to one way or another. I like to explore all the possibilities. I find it very fascinating and fun and encouraging and fulfilling. And then at the end of that, when I'm done with like my thought experiment or exploring what happened, I just whatever my best guess is, whatever I feel like it was, I go with that. And sometimes I kind of just in the back of my head, and I say, okay, maybe I'll revisit that in the future, or maybe I feel like that is the case. And here's the thing for me too, is that when you see more than a couple things lining up, I mean, when it gets like absurd, the
Hmm.
amount of that are saying this was you or this was you or you did this or you were in the body of this person or whatever, and you're not making that up.
Yeah.
Like for instance, in my case, some of my memories of past lives are things that I would never have made up. Some of them I didn't even want that. Like if someone said that that's what you did, I'm like, oh no, this is not good. But when I
Yeah.
think about and I really think about it and I get objectively into it, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's the thing be difficult for the advancement of the spirit is that you have to face your dark side. You have to face possibly what you've done in the past. And then the whole point for me, the whole point of reincarnation for me is I believe a lot of reasons it happens. Um, it's the Earth system, the solar system is for me it's an ascension vehicle or a descension vehicle. So you basically decide where you're going to go by your actions and what lives in your heart in terms of when you die and you pass on. I feel like a lot of spirits, when I say spirit, I mean the essential quality of the person, ends up staying on Earth for a while because it's a comfortable place. Maybe you haven't qualified to move on. Maybe you haven't qualified to move down, which would be into maybe the hellish realms.
Hmm.
Hopefully not. It does happen. It's all along the cosmic axis, grid
Yeah.
that goes to the Earth. That's how the dimensions are set up. So the point for me is that we come here to learn. We come here to figure out who we are. The axiom "Know thyself" obviously is what that's all about.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we come here, in my opinion, to pay karma. So some of the things we don't want to do in our lives, or we feel like we're being forced upon us, is 1-to-1, if not maybe more than that. In terms of if you do something, you get it back. That's called cosmic law. Some of the other ththings, people come here as protectors. I know some people specifically come here to protect other people. Some people come here because it looked cool, like they're curious. They want to know what's going on down here. Some people were tricked. Some people were abandoned. There's literally there's not a limit to the ways that we can get down here. So I find it very fascinating to explore the different avenues and keep it open, and like Aurora said several times, you have to go with what resonates with you. Trust that I think, you know, if you can trust anything, it's your personal conviction, especially when you've been shown many times, and
Yeah.
you've been given, and that's the thing too, given different pieces of information that fall into place. In Aurora's case, it's even more amazing to me because they were different hypnotists doing it, and it patched the picture. You know, they weren't pulling things and saying it's a different story. It's the same story. They're just pulling different patches, and then, you know, that's amazing evidence. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, that was a different lifetime altogether, and that story is really incredible as well. I don't know if we'll have time for that, but there's so many, so many incredible experiences that, you know, it's worth just keeping an open mind and not negating what's coming through for you and what's showing up for you. There was something else I should have written it down. I always keep a notebook here to do that, and I forgot. But
If you want to, oh, good.
well, I was going to say, you know, to finish the story of what had happened, I'd love to kind of pick back up there if that's okay. Um, so I'm standing or I'm sitting there and I've got my eyes closed, and like I said, my friend and her daughter, both of them are my friends, are watching this happen. And, you know, they were saying that they were seeing, one of them saw with their eyes, the other one was having, I believe, like an inner eye experience of seeing this man standing in front of me. And he pulled my arms up. And so literally, like, my arms just went like this, like, you know, involuntary. Like, I didn't feel like I was moving my arms, like he picked them up. And he's looking at me, and it was like he started crying and washing away like my sorrow, my grief, everything from that lifetime and from earlier in this lifetime. That's what it felt like. He was just crying like tears of purification. And I'm at this point, I'm just like, I start crying. And my friends are crying. I don't know that they're crying, but they're watching this whole thing and feeling it, and they're crying. And then on the show, the guy who's heading, the medium who's heading up the seance says, "Oh, I sense the presence of a Native American man." Like, are you serious right now? Holy crap. Like, I couldn't even process what was happening. So
So
I
he
don't,
was essentially, somehow he was there and with you at the same time. It was probably,
well, you know, the interesting thing is that I think it was after, like, after that, I think he had closed, like, he had gone and basically, you know, said, you know, "I'll see you again." But what I was aware of in that moment, because sometimes when these things happen, you get sort of this is how I receive it sometimes, is that I get blocks of information. And so I became aware that, like, he was a spirit guide for me in that life, that he was guiding me, helping me with all of these different things. So, you know, when I was doing the blueprints, when I was um, finding people to hire on to have on the crew, when I was, you know, planting the orchards and everything, like, he was there with me. And I just knew that. So fast forward just a little, so then they said that it was like that had come to a close, and that's when they said, it was like as soon as he left, that's when they said it on the show. So then they cut to commercial, and when they said, "Okay, when we come back, we're going to contact Sarah Winchester." So I'm like, you know, my senses are heightened. I'm like really eager, basically, to disprove this medium. I was a little cocky at that age. Um, but, you know, I was kind of like, what's going to come out of this? Like, you know, what could possibly happen at this point where, you know, Sarah, she's not, if I'm her, if she's not there, what kind of communication are they going to get? I'm just so, like, eager to see what's going to happen. So during the commercial, I passed out. I fell asleep, which seems impossible because I was so energized and excited to see this. It makes no sense to my brain at all that I would pass out and fall asleep. And when I got up, I woke up and they had already contacted her. And I was kind of like, when I got up, I was a little bit upset. I was like, why would you let me sleep through that? She goes, oh no, you weren't sleeping. You were there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes, while you were sleeping, she goes, I knew that this was going to coincide with the show. So I knew that you needed to be sleeping for this. So I'm laying there sleeping. They start contacting Sarah. He goes, okay, he said something about, I feel the presence of Sarah in the house or something. I can't remember what she said. It was something like that, that they were feeling the presence of her. And then as I'm laying there asleep, I start humming in my sleep. I start singing, like humming. I don't know when I've ever done this, but apparently this is what happened. So I'm humming in my sleep. You can hear on the show singing and humming coming out of the TV. And they go, oh, Sarah's here. She's communicating with us. And so I don't remember all of what she said. I mean, I'd have to go back and talk to my friend and ask her all of the details, because obviously being asleep, I can't vouch for everything that happened while I was sleeping. But I just remember they were like, oh no, like you were there, you were gone, you were not in your body at that time, you were somewhere else. But still there was like enough life force that like I was still humming and it was still coming through. So
Really interesting. Really, really interesting. I
so
mean, I was really quickly, I start to think about some of the experiences I've had where I fell asleep in very strange circumstances. For instance, hey, maybe it's because I went, when I say I mean my spirit. Maybe it went somewhere else because I was called, or someone said, hey, Dave, can you come over here? Well, sometimes you maybe don't have enough energy to be in two places at once, or enough consciousness or whatever. But this is one of the most amazing. This is fantastic, Aurora. I want to keep this going for sure. This topic about past lives. But anyway, keep going.
yeah. So that evening kind of came to a close, and actually, no, before we closed, we when I woke up and they had finished the seance thing, I was aware, like I think all of us kind of felt at the same time that like there's some clearing that needs to be done, because there's still a lot of dense energy in this space. There's a lot of projections and imprints in this space of people misunderstanding what this was meant for and
Mhm.
how it was meant to be utilized. And now it's essentially a museum. And it it's a shame. I mean, I'm glad that it's preserved, but it's a shame that there's so much misunderstanding around it. And I understand that there's been a modern horror flick that was made a couple years ago, and I could not bring myself to go see it, because I'm just like, no, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not being a part of that, you know. Um,
Have
but
you been to the house?
okay, so this is where the story gets interesting. So after the seance is complete, I think they're still like walking around the house and they're doing stuff. And um, my friend and my friends and I decide that we're going to clear the house. So we close our eyes, we project ourselves there, and we start doing some clearing. So, I started calling in assistants, calling in archangels, clearing the space, talking to the spirits, seeing new spirits that weren't there before, seeing ones that had been there for a long time, and, basically opening a portal of light and being like, okay, it's time to go home. You don't need to be here anymore. Like, it's safe to go back to the light. That you cannot continue your journey here. This served you for a time, but you're not supposed to stay here. Go back to God, whatever that experience was for them. So we did that, and I think there was a follow-up episode or a follow-up like snippet or something. And I think it was, I don't know how many weeks later or something, but it was interesting because there was some confirmation that we had heard that the medium had gone back there a couple weeks later, and that he said it, oh no, I think it was the people in the house, and the medium had gone back, or something along those lines, where there was still contact with people, and that they said it had been really quiet since that experience, that they didn't have as many paranormal experiences, and it just felt really like abnormally quiet there, because there was always some kind of spirit activity that people were having in the house. And it could have had to do with the seance, but they weren't doing any clearing. They were kind of activating things. That's kind of what you're doing when you're opening up a portal of communication, is that you're kind of like inviting more of that to show itself to you. So I mean, whether we had anything to do with that or not, would be interesting to know, but it is what it is. But then, so at that time, I felt like, okay, that chapter of my life is over. I got what I needed to get, and I felt like I'd kind of moved on. So fast forward a couple more years, and I'm on a trip to Mount Shasta, where I'd met some friends, and I end up sharing my story with a new friend, and he was floored. He was just like, "You've got to go there." And I'm like, no. I feel like that chapter's over. Like, I feel complete. I don't feel like I need to go there. He's like, no. You have to go there. So the interesting thing about this is that when I met him, like, there was some strange familiarity. Like, I again, it was one of those experiences where you're like, I know this person. I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know from when or where, but I knew that I knew him. So I ended up traveling with him, I'm sorry, to a few different places. And we ended up going down to the coast, and he took me almost kicking and screaming, because I really didn't want to go. And he's like, I am taking you, you have to go, because he was just so blown away by this story. And so we get there, and he's trying to talk to managers and bring people out, and I'm like, please don't get these people. They're not going to believe anything that I'm saying. I'm going to look like a fool. I don't want to talk to these people who are basically just museum curators. They're not really there. they're not there to hear past life stories. They maybe don't even believe in the ghost stuff themselves. They're probably just there because it's a job. They don't want to deal with, who they think are crazy people. So regardless, somebody came out, I shared a little bit of my story, and of course they're like, okay. So he was asking, my friend was trying to get us a private tour, and they're like, oh, private tours are like 100, or I don't know how many hundreds of dollars, I don't know, it was something ridiculous. And I'm like, I'm not getting a private tour. I'm not spending my money that way. I'm good. We could just walk through the house, just get the regular tour. I'm fine. So before we go in, we're walking the grounds, and we're kind of seeing the back part of the house, and there were orchards, like things that I had seen that they didn't show on TV. And I was like, oh my gosh. Again, I was just like, more and more confirmation, more and more validation. So then we go into the tour, we go through the house. One of the rooms in the bottom of the house, which is now like part of the museum part that they've changed, there's like a snack bar, and then they had this whole rifle museum in the house. Immediately, like when I saw this, just this energy of like, I was just felt infuriated. I'm like, how dare you have those things in this house? Like, I was like furious. But I can't say anything. So I'm just like bubbling up with all of these different emotions, like feeling the feelings. Being there again was like an experience in itself. But then we're taking the tour, and I'm having more memories coming through as we're taking the tour. We're going into different parts of the house, and suddenly I have an awareness, and I'm going to leave out part of the details because I don't really want to share this publicly about there's something specifically that she had that she hid in a part of the house. And I didn't want to share it with the manager either, you know, because I figured if I asked the question, if he did know something, he probably wouldn't tell me. And if he didn't know something, either way, he's going to look at me like I'm crazy. So it didn't really make sense to try and ask him about this thing. But there was one thing in particular that I really was curious to see if there was any validation about it whatsoever. So there was a point where I knew that there was like a hidden door or a hidden compartment that led to a place where she had hid something that was valuable to her. And it's not what you think it is. It's not like value in terms of like treasure or something. So, but it's meaningful nonetheless. So I'm going past this one section and I'm turning the corner, and the weird part is that I was explaining this to my friend as we were like going up this one staircase. I'm like, it's here. I can feel it. I know it's right here. And I literally walked up to a wall, the floorboard part of the wall, no seams, nothing that made it overt at all. You would never have noticed this. And I pushed it and it opened. And both of I mean, even though I knew that it was there, it was still shocking. Like you never expect that like your intuition is going to be validated until it is. And then you're like, I don't know what to do with all that. So
Especially
I'm like,
that kind of a way.
oh my
You know,
gosh.
it has to do with like a reincarnation event, past life event. That's amazing.
It was unbelievable. And then one of the interesting things is that when I was a kid, we had an organ in our house that I used to play. And I don't know, I never learned how to play piano. Like I had taken like 3 piano lessons in my childhood, but when I got on this organ, I would play this organ and all of these like random sort of haunting melodies would come out. I have no idea where I learned them. They just came out. And I'm not saying I wasn't like good. I wasn't like great as a kid. I'm not some kind of protege or anything, but like I knew how to play at least enough. Like I could, you know, make music and make songs, and I don't know where this stuff was coming from. So when we go into the big like ballroom area, there's this big organ there. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then there's all kinds of nods to the number 13, which is also very esoteric. And there's a lot of kind of weaving that she did with that kind of information that's embedded in the house that I feel a connection to. So anyway, we get done with the tour. You know, I'm still just like electrified. My body is kind of shaking because I'm just like, I don't know how to process all of it. It's just like pretty overwhelming at that point. And we go outside in the front, which we hadn't been around the front part. And there's this statue of a Native American man in the front yard. And it was the same man that came to me that day in the my friend's house when they were doing the seance. And the thing that came clear to me in that moment was that my friend who took me there, that he was that man in that life, in that, and so during that experience when he came to me, his soul was mirroring to me that incarnation or that experience of him being a guide. So anyway, there was so many confirmations, validations. It was just quite a fascinating story and experience. So
now, what was in that piece of the wall that you pushed? Was there something in there, or was it empty? What's going on?
so it was empty, but I don't.
You don't. But there was nothing in there when you pushed it.
No, and there's more to it, but the space itself existed. So
Okay.
that's where I knew that the feeling that I had and the vision that I had about that thing being put there, that it was that it was indeed there. So yeah, I that was enough for me, just knowing that that spot actually existed.
Okay, now who was the Native American? Why did they put him outside the house?
You know what? I actually I never looked into that. I never asked them about the story of the Native American man, so I don't know like where that story fit into the history of the house from, you know, museum perspective or whatever. I never asked that question, but for me it was validation enough. So it would be interesting for sure to dive into that and to see you know, if it had some alternative meaning or what, you know, or it could have, you know, it could have just been a representation of, you know, spirits that had been killed from the rifle. That could have been, you know, a tribute or a memorial or something like that. Which that would be my best guess, but without knowing for sure and doing any research on, you know, the official like reason why that's there, I can't say. I can only just share my experience that I had with it. But yeah.
Do you feel like that you have learned the lesson from that lifetime? If that's in fact, I mean, it sounds like 100. It sounds 100% to me. I mean, I fully believe it after hearing, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, you have to give the person the time to tell the full story before you say, "Oh, I think that's ridiculous." Actually, I don't think it's ridiculous. It fits really well. I know Aurora is a person as well, you know, and so that has a lot more credibility on top of the story. But you see, like, I mean, come on, birthdays, knowing where things are. You have other witnesses as well, people seeing what you saw and seeing that you literally said, "Hey, this is going to be around the corner," and then they showed that, and it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable, unbelievable supporting evidence. Do did I'm not sure if I asked you, but did you feel like you learned the lesson from that lifetime in or by the time you got to this lifetime, so that you don't have to repeat that again?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I took away from that was it really about like martyrdom in the negative sense, that I had given so much of myself that I really, I kind of went about helping them in a way that I thought was best for them. And I made it my job, but to the degree where, you know, I was a recluse, I was a little bit like a hermit lady. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't go out very often. I remember, you
That
know,
could be a very Cancer attribute too. You know,
oh
if
yeah,
if
oh
if the Cancer person feels safe, they'll no problem going out. If they feel uncomfortable or emotional, they might stay in for long periods of time. It's the same thing the crab does. You know, if the crab feels threatened, which is Cancer, they go hide in the sand, or they go in their little cave, and then everything's okay.
yeah. I mean, and there were different really interesting things that had happened in that house too. Like one of the things was that, you know, they said that she didn't sleep in the same room consistent, like she would sleep in a different room every night. But there was one room that she did, you know, prefer, I think, over others. And she ended up getting trapped in there during an earthquake. And so that was, you know, created a little PTSD kind of experience of like, I don't want to stay in that room again. Like it's a little vulnerable. But you know, the thing was is that, you know, myself or she or however you want to look at it, you know, kind of opened up her home to the experience of having like an unstable home life. And that's not really healthy, especially for Cancerian. You know, we need our house to feel strong and stable and cozy and warm, and she did feel that with the people, you know, the people that she hired on to help with all of these projects and to maintain things. They were like family. I mean, even though she was still a bit recluse and socially awkward, you know, they were still like family to her. She treated them really well. She paid them well. You know, they stayed there many times, and you know, so she felt like she was doing good work in the world, and I think that she was. But definitely there was a lot of self-sacrifice that was unnecessary to the point where it was almost a little bit harmful, I think, to her well-being. And I know in this lifetime, I do that even today. It's like definitely a pattern for me of like overextending myself to the degree where even when I don't feel good, I still push myself to like, reach out and help people. But to me, that's not always a bad thing. So I still probably have some of those tendencies, but I know now more when I need to draw the line for my own like health and well-being and be like, okay, I need to go rejuvenate. I need to have some alone time, especially like being really really energetically sensitive, like any kind of empath or sensitive, like we need to have our time to rejuvenate. We need to have our time to just have no stimulus at all. For me, it's like taking a hot bath and shutting everything out and just like letting go of everything that is not working and for me it's like letting God in and letting that essence and that energy into every nook and cranny, every particle, every atom, every molecule of my being, where I've been, pushing back, I've been putting up walls or boundaries or protections. If I don't do that and let God in every once in a while, like as often as I can think about it, ideally, then it's like if I don't give myself time for that, we start to suffocate in a way. We start to cut ourselves off from life force. We start to cut ourselves off from unconditional love. So to me, that's like it's so huge for us to have that time of rejuvenation and one-on-one time with spirit and letting all like the world of the physical kind of be at the wayside as we lean into the world of spirit, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. We have to find the time to recharge, get connected. If the connection has been interrupted, to reestablish that connection by getting that downtime, I agree 100%. And I can really appreciate, now I want to look into the story again. I've seen quite a bit about the Winchester House, but it's gotten a lot more interesting for me after your story. Is just fantastic. But I can appreciate, kind of what Sarah did too, is that I think the hallmark for in a spirit that's advancing is to want to level the karmic balance. It's that like, look, I'm so sorry about what happened to all the people because of the invention of the rifle and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I believe she felt awful about it. And I'll speak for myself really quickly. Is that there's things that I've done in previous lifetimes that I need to make good on.
Mm-hmm.
Then I do want to know what that is, and I'm going to correct it because, at the end of the day, really what I think we're all shooting for is for our true freedom, which means, for me, means freedom from incarnation if you don't feel like it. There's other ways to do it. I mean, a lot of the ascended masters, it said they can come into bodies and they can dematerialize at will, and it's not death. It's just that, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm going to move on somewhere else or go do
Yep.
something else for a while. Come back if they want to. The whole issue of the earth for me, the physical earth, is that it's a limited dimension, where if the idea for me is that the spirit, which is your essential quality, is in a way it's actually trapped inside the physical vessel. Now, trapped might not be the word everyone agrees with. That's certainly what it feels like for me,
Yeah.
because I'm not used to that. I am not used to that. I don't personally really like it that much, because there's much better ways to do things, in my opinion. There's higher energy gradients you can work with. There's places that have a lot less evil and a lot more good in terms of the ratio than here. So the idea for me is to figure it out so that we can get to that better place. And the mature spirit is willing to say, I'm ready to do and willing to do what it takes to make everything right, to even the balance. If I need to pay for that, then please give that to me, because I have a contrite heart, and that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that everything is fixed. And then when the universe sees that you mean that and that you're taking action, you will be rewarded for that. And eventually, at the end of paying your balance, I believe you do get your freedom. But there's a lot of things we have to know, I feel, in before that happens. And one of them, in my opinion, well, the big one for me is you have to learn to manage your energy. if you can produce all of your own energy, this is where it goes in terms of ascension for me, is that you reach a point where you're actually just pulling energy. Well, not even necessarily pulling, you're generating through fusion, nuclear fusion, your own energy in your body. And when that happens, there's a lot of things that don't need to happen. You don't need food, physical food. You don't actually even need to breathe. You're not going to be aging, and you're not going to be dying. We have very, very small amount of electricity turned on in our bodies. I think people say we use 10% of our brains. It's probably close to accurate for me in terms of, I think only 10% of our bodies are powered up. Well, if you power up the other 90%, then you get the story of Jesus, and you get the story of Muhammad, and you get the story of and you get the story of all the saints and Krishna, all the saints with the halos around their heads, which of course takes us back to the conference, which is called Halo 2.0, where we met. And the light body, it forms, it's part of the physical structure of your body, that it's actually been set up to do that if you know what you're doing and if you apply yourself. But I also believe that you won't, believe me, it's extremely difficult. The amount of discipline is required. You have to dedicate your entire life to the true principles of physiology and medicine. I don't think that someone would actually be able to pull that off if they hadn't nearly or fully completed their karmic balance, because you have to be willing to turn everything in. It's available to everyone, but I don't think you're going to be able to do it until you have leveled everything and you've paid all of your karmic debt. So it's all a big system, but I want people to have their freedom. I also believe in justice, for myself included. And so because of that, if we get the conversation going and we get the right topics out there, we can figure it out, and just the fact that if your previous life was such and such, and you're not a huge, I'm saying for anyone, maybe you don't love that, maybe you do love that. I mean, I don't know. I think it goes both ways. But my point is that ideally, you want to be able to decide what it is. You want to be the one in control. You don't want to be spiraling down here, not knowing what family you're going to come into and what your life's going to be like, and am I going to have resources and all this stuff. The idea for me is that you have full consciousness. You can choose what's going on. And then the best part about it for me is that if you have truly ascended, if it's not working out great for you, you can actually leave at will, and there's a lot of people in situations I feel very sorry for that, they don't want to be wherever they are. They're not in a good situation. They don't want to be there. But since you're in a physical form, you can't just dematerialize. But guess who can do that? Well, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, these are some of the examples. And that's the ability that you really want to have ideally, because then the other thing too, is the last point I want to make, is that you are free to walk away from a situation if it's not serving you. There doesn't have to be aggression or violence. It's not a threat to your physical form. It's be like, okay, I'm gonna appear here. If I feel the energy's bad, I'm gonna disappear, and that's it. It's the end of that. You don't have to interact again. The spirit world has been separated and balanced, and everything's okay. But right now, since we're stuck in the physical, well, again, for me the word is stuck, not for everyone. You can't just dematerialize like that, and it makes the physical world brings a whole set of its own challenges, which is of course aging and lack of resources, making sure that you're warm and stuff like that. You have to have all that stuff. In the spirit world, you don't. Spirit world, you can do, almost anything in terms of what your heart is set out to do. And there are, I believe, guidelines. And depending on how the dimension's been structured, there's rules, there's local rules where they're set into the grid. And one of the things that I've imagined is that I believe there's higher dimensions that if you take certain actions against people, especially without reason, and they're not appropriate actions, you will actually be not even escorted. You'll just disappear. So if you take that action, the grid records it, and it doesn't. No one's watching you. You agree. If you come in, let me just paint this really quickly, because I like it's a very encouraging image. You want to come into the dimension. Let's say if I was in charge of a dimension or Earth or a planet, you want to come into my planet. There's one entrance, and at the entrance is going to be a council of elders. There's going to be probably 12 elders there. I like the number. It's a good one because, of course, it's a zodiac as well. We're going to have 12 people there from all different types of life, probably all appearing differently, different genders, all these things, different ages. Everyone's going to be represented. you want to come in, you have to state who you are. You have to state your purpose. You have to show yourself how you appear. You can't hide in in the invisible world like a lot of malevolent spirits like to do. And your energy field is on full display. And if you don't pass the test, you're not coming in. That's it. There's actually no question about that. And right now, I think it feels a lot of loopholes in the Earth plane where you can get in you can kind of get in a lot of backdoor ways. There's a lot of loopholes and sneaking in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a function of a mid-level dimension, which is what I believe the Earth is. It's not a very high one. It's not a very low one. So I think that there's ways to do this, and I just want to get people where they belong, And then the people I care about, I want to be able to ensure safety and prosperity and happiness and all those things. And right now, physical realm, it's very hard to do that. Very hard to do that, especially if you're not the one with all the resources,
Yeah, I love what you said. I think it kind of some of what you were saying there at the end kind of reminded me of the Pleiadian Agenda and Bringers of the Dawn, both books of the Pleiadian beings. But they talk a lot about that. They talk a lot about the different beings that have come, that have had their kind of ways to interact and weave with the culture and to have influence on us and with us. But that essentially Earth is a living library. It's like a collection of information, of DNA, of genetics, of experience, of codes, of light, of sound. And yeah, it's really fascinating. But also I want to speak to what you were talking about as well with our right action and right use of will and things like that. And a lot of the Eastern traditions, they talk about karma and they talk about the wheel of incarnation and how it's a process of coming in at very, rudimentary forms of life, and that we essentially work our way up to becoming human. And that if we get to that point, that the objective in many different, sacred texts is essentially you want to get out of the wheel of karma. You want to get out of the loop of incarnation to go through your own ascension process, to do what these other masters did, like you said, and were able to achieve, not for the purpose of achieving it, not for the purpose of glorification or something or notoriety, but because there's an acknowledgement and a desire to be one with that divine essence and to know that that is the primary driving force. And when we are that thing, that's when we're creating waves of change. That's when we're being that frequency of love and purity and, cosmic support for other people and for ourselves, is when we're in the space of transformation and oneness and letting go of the illusion of separateness. I just revisited the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and the Yoga Sutras recently. This past 2 weeks, I got through all of them, and a lot of them, a lot of what we're talking about is spoken about in those texts. And so for those of you really interested in this conversation and interested in the path of ascension, I highly encourage you to just check them out and just see what's there. Just kind of explore the teachings, and not out of any need to cling to something, but just to explore, to see if there's any value in there for you.
I think the purest one, in my opinion, is the Upanishads. It's you're really not qualifying anything, if I remember correctly. It's large concepts. It's not talking about specific God figures. It's talking about light and purity and happiness.
Qualities.
Right. How do you get those things? Those things are all outside of religion for me. Need religion, no problem. But again, it's this thing where don't don't start to try to impose your beliefs on other people.
Right.
Because for me, this is going to be the end of the conversation. I'm going to tell you, look, I respect what you believe, but I don't believe that. Okay, you have to know that at the outset, so we can save a lot of time and get things clear here. And I like that about the Upanishads because it's about the ideas and the topics. It's not about what God figure is this? There's not this fixation on who came here and what did they do for us. Well, you know what? I believe we can all do that ourselves as well.
Yeah.
And the thing is that me personally, I do believe in Jesus as a ascended master. I do. I believe in other people also as ascended masters, such as Krishna,
Mhm.
and appreciate them. I do not worship them. I do not worship any deity or any figure. I can handle it myself, quite frankly, and if I've done something incorrectly and there's a higher being, please show me. I want to learn. I want to not do those things again. But this thing has to end where people feel like they're not good enough. I cannot stand this stuff in religion. Of course you are, but you have to rise to the occasion. You have to become that person that you look at, or that figure that you look at and respect, and because they're so kind and gentle and forgiving and loving, all this stuff. You have to embody that.
Exactly. That was,
For that to happen.
yes. I think you nailed it with that, because I mean, one of the things that started to become a turnoff for me, in my early teens when I was really still immersed in the church, was that there were so many teachings, so many verses that pointed to Yeshua or Jesus, saying directly things like, "What I have done, you will do, and more." And it's like, when I would bring that stuff up, people would either shrug it off, or they'd say, "Oh, that's too deep to understand," or I would say, "Here it is, black and white," and then they want to go into denial about it. But yet, even among the apostles, he sent them out to perform miracles. So if he was the only one that was meant to be using, that Christed energy, then why would he be appointing the apostles to do these miracles as well? Because he was teaching them how to embody Christ's light. Anyway, we don't have to go into the whole religion conversation, but you're absolutely right. And I think that it's so important to remember the essence of the teachings. And this goes back to the beginning of the conversation. We were talking about, you know, embodying the essence of the teachings, taking what is really powerful and transformational and learning how to fully embody that, instead of it just being like an intellectual conversation that's happening out here and then idolizing the messenger, or or throwing out the messenger, whatever the case is. It's like the messengers didn't want to be worshipped and idolized, and if they did, they probably weren't teaching the right things. uh,
Yep.
because really it's about embodiment. It's about giving everyone that all access pass in the right space, with the right intention, with the purity of heart, and that pure intention to be a supportive role for the earth, for mankind, for animal kind, for all of life. And I think if we're not doing that, then we're missing the mark. And that's the technical definition of the word sin that you find in the Bible, is to miss the mark. And even that has been so distorted. And having conversations with people, I was listening, because I'm always scouring the internet. I'm always reading, like you and I are, researchers. We kind of dig into things a lot. So I love Christian mysticism. I love getting into stuff about that, the Gnostic Gospels, the Essene Gospels, missing texts, missing scrolls, all of it. I'm very, the Nag Hammadi library. I'm very much into all of that. I love learning what's there. I love learning what's been omitted. And somebody was doing a presentation on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they went into this litany about how the Dead Sea Scrolls were fake because it was found out that they were written on a leather shoe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, first of all, there were like 200 or something scrolls. There was like an exorbitant number of scrolls that were found. And for this person to try to convince the whole Christian community to, you know, shun anyone who's interested in the Dead Sea Scrolls or Gnostic Gospels, and basically refute it all by saying, oh, the Dead Sea Scroll was found to be on a leather shoe. You know, what was interesting was that after that, I was doing a little bit more research, and I discovered that the person, and he was saying, oh, the person before that, he's saying the person that found them, oh, is probably just, you know, he made them up or whatever for his own financial gain. The person who found them was a little boy in Qumran, like this young boy goat farmer who stumbled across them. And later on, I saw an interview with this man who said, I never wanted to find this. You know, his family wasn't even, you know, affiliated with this religious practice or anything like this. He didn't want that on his hands. He was like, I didn't really want to have anything to do with it. And so that was interesting to me. And the other interesting thing is that when they were found in, like, I think it was, you know, 46 or 49 or so, it was like somewhere in the mid to late 40s. He sold the first bit of the scrolls, which had, I believe, the Isaiah scroll in it, to a cobbler, or that may have been the second person to purchase it. There was an interesting thing, but the first purchase, he sold it for $100 at the time. 100, can you imagine? I mean, obviously you can't put even value on that. So to think about it in that way was interesting. But the fact that this other guy was, you know, trying to, you know, dissuade people from even looking into it by slandering this person who he said had his own self-interest in mind and at heart. I'm just like, wow, the lengths that people will go to try and keep people from looking outside of the box of their own container, their own lifestyle, their own beliefs, their own religions, whatever it is. Look outside of the box. I encourage people, you know, I'm not saying to change your religion, to change your worldviews, but at least look outside of the box long enough just to see what else might be out there, because it's always, to me, when I started looking outside of that box, I felt a deeper connection to the teachings. I felt more clarity. I felt like a bigger piece of the puzzle and the picture was actually set before me, and it made me feel like I could now be more accountable and work on my own self-mastery with the teachings that he actually was trying to share with people, and not the misunderstandings. You know, I think that's unfortunately where some of the canonical Bible, I'm not saying the whole thing, because I think that there's still a lot of intact stuff in the Bible. But, you know, there are certain things within the canonical text that, because certain things were shifted even the slightest bit or omitted, it paints an entirely different picture than what Yeshua was actually saying to begin with, and what his intentions actually were to pass on to people. So anyway.
There's a lot changed, omitted, voted on, all of this stuff, you know, manipulated. Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, for me, is that I am interested in what happened, but you know what I'm more interested in is how you treat people. So
Yeah.
I actually don't care what people believe. I care about, let me see that in action. The only action I want to see is kind action. So you can believe in a clown if you want to. I really don't care. See the action, and that's going to tell me what I need to know about you. Yeah. And then also statements. I make statements right out front. I'm saying the objective is to be kind, to be loving, to be generous, to be compassionate, all these things. If I'm missing the mark, then, you know, you can call me out on it if you want to, because I'm professing in front of everyone at the outset of every conversation. These are the things I believe in. So my actions better match that. And if they don't, there's a problem. There's a serious problem. And then I have to obviously revisit that and try to fix things. And I think that's what it takes, is to realize, to be accountable, and to make it clear what your objective is and what you're trying to create, you know, what kind of world you want to create. I just want to mention one more thing. And and then I'll go over to you about your website and your services and everything, because you have some great stuff on your website and on YouTube and everything. So the last thing I wanted to say is, of course, Edgar Casey, which we talked about briefly. He was a wonderful channeler, medical channeler for a lot of what he did. He also channeled a lot about Atlantis and previous civilizations and things. But one of the things that he brought up, I just read one of the most popular books about him. It was a biography about Edgar Casey, and it said when he came to the topic, because he was Christian, at the outset, he always was, but he was able to later on open up the ideas to a little bit broader perspective. And one of the things he came up with about reincarnation was, he said that there were a couple things brought up. The first one was that and I agree with this, supposedly the original Christian text did include reincarnation, and they were removed, I believe, as a control mechanism. There's no question in my mind, try to control the population and what they think. But he also said, well, you know what, the part that's still in here, he said, I'm pretty sure that born again sounds like reincarnation to me. I mean, that's a pretty clear statement. I mean, come on now. I have nothing to add to that. That sounds like reincarnation to me too. And also, I mean, there's a lot of meanings about that, a lot of esoteric physiological topics that I get into a lot with that. But the point is that for most people looking at that, that pretty much is the definition of reincarnation, that you're born again. Talking about you're being born again, not like a random, that means that you must go on, and then you must, as a spirit, and then you must come back into a physical form again. Well, whoever was trying to take that out, guys, you didn't do a very good job, because that one to me is, it's like a green light saying, no, we actually do believe in reincarnation. But you have to go with what you feel, and don't be afraid of supporting evidence and texts and documents. Maybe some are fake, I don't know which ones, especially if I can't see it. But what I do know is that the core teachings, as far as I'm concerned, are always the same. And the teaching that we want to get to is the teaching of ascension, and how to become the best version of yourself, how to become your divine self. And that requires us to pay back karma and to really clear the heart, and to act from the heart and kindly towards each other. Okay, so I really appreciate you joining me, Aurora. I mean, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been awesome. It's been fun. Yeah, so much juicy conversation happening today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's really wonderful. I mean, this is the first conversation I've actually had about reincarnation and past lives on my channel, so I'm really excited to add that to my channel. And for me, it's a very convincing one. I knew we were going to be talking about this, but I didn't know at that level. So I am really excited about this, and I'm excited to continue the conversation too. Maybe we can even do a series on past lives. We can keep going. There's a lot more to get into, I think.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, I've got so many other experiences similar to that equally as mind-blowing. I mean, this one in particular had so much physical evidence for me that it was hard to deny what I was experiencing. Now, a lot of the other ones, I don't have as much of the physical evidence in terms of like having been to these places and so on and so forth, but the reoccurring visions, the kind of bits and pieces that have put the stories together over time, that's a whole interesting piece in itself. And one quick thing that I'll add too is that, most of my really powerful past life recalls or memories that have dropped in for me that were like life changing, they came in before I ever started doing regression. I wasn't looking for it. Like I said, I was saying that, earlier on, I didn't go looking for it. It came looking for me. And I think, one of the triggers for me is that when I started doing body work, you go back to the conversation of cellular memory. Holy cow. When I started having things like acupressure done, working on the meridians, the energy centers of the body, when I started having craniosacral work done, working with the cerebral spinal fluid, when I started having myofascial release done, working with the connective tissue or the fiber optic information network highway of the body that contains all of our cellular memory, that's when the fireworks started happening. I had no idea what to expect. I thought I was doing massage. I mean, I knew energy work was going to be involved, but I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I'm glad that I took the road that I did. And I'm so grateful that the teachers, the facilitators, and the school that I got to be a part of was very alternative in that way. It was very open-minded, more Eastern philosophy incorporated. It was so outside of the box. It was not your traditional massage school at all. And so I'm grateful that all of those people got to be part of my journey and held the container for that, because most massage schools, you're learning very clinical stuff. And when you're doing body work, you're not trained, you're not prepared to create a container or hold space for people to have spontaneous past life regressions or emotional releases, or to relive birth trauma or car accidents, or all of these things that can come out of bodywork experiences. You're not trained for that. And I feel so fortunate and blessed that I had the opportunity to be prepared, to learn how to hold space, to learn how to tune into subtle energy and master that before ever putting my hands on a human body, because you have so much deeper respect for the process, knowing what's possible to come out of it. Now, again, like when that stuff started coming up for me, like I knew I had seen people having emotional releases and things where people are crying on the table or even screaming, and some of it can be kind of surprising, because when you've never done that or seen that before, it's kind of like you get a little shocked. But I didn't know that I was going to start having all of these intense visions and feel like I was literally transported to these times and spaces, and maybe we'll talk about this in future, episodes, because my feeling is that there is an element of time travel at play when this stuff is happening. That, we talk about the quantum field, and, people have heard, I'm sure everyone's heard the expression, like, there is no time, not in the way that we think of it. I don't think time is linear in the way that we think of it, that everything exists in the here and now, and our intention gives us the ability, or our expansion, right? Because intention, we're holding something, but there's also something to be said about the releasing of the intention. We're letting go of the tension in order to experience the expansion. And that's when we can be transported to a time and place that's necessary for us to integrate something or reintegrate something that maybe we really need to fully embody in this lifetime. So anyway, I'll leave it at that for now, but yeah.
Absolutely. And that time travel component, for me, it happens through the cerebrospinal fluid, actually, which is the reason I was looking into that day back in 2015 when I started to learn astrology. It was a video about the CSF fluid, and it said that the spirit actually lives inside of that fluid, and it's a conduit for all the cellular structure of the body. And I agree with you 100%. It's all dimensional time travel, all kinds of stuff like that. And it can get really strange. I mean, you have to be prepared for extreme shifts of energy. I agree. Kundalini comes into this oftentimes as well, and it's something you need to be, prepared for sure. You don't want to just go into it. But I think when we have guidance on it, it makes it easier. And if you can prime people for that, what to possibly expect, then you can, I think, have more success with it. So anyway, Roy, if you want to tell people about your services and your website, where people can find you and all this great stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks again for having me on the show. For any of you who are interested in reaching out, connecting, or possibly interested in my services, what I have to offer, I do offer intuitive services, which is a very large umbrella of different techniques and modalities that I utilize. Again, no two sessions are ever alike. My strong suit is really tuning in with people, I'm a very physical empath. So one of the first things that I tune into is the energetic body. And then that kind of takes me into the physical body. And then sometimes, you know, part of what we're doing in the intuitive work is that we're sort of following this stream of consciousness or this cord, and somewhere there's a knot that is ready to be found and unwound. And so, you know, my commitment is just to be there with you, holding space together as we kind of follow that cord and see what the core root of whatever it is that you're either wanting to create, that you are wanting to release, that you're wanting to integrate, whatever the case is, so that we can find, you know, where, you know, either in this lifetime or other lifetimes that this originated, that maybe a problem originated, or, you know, or a block originated that has possibly been holding you back from your own expansion or moving forward in your own journey. So I do offer like theta healing. Again, medical intuition is something I really lean into a lot. I work a lot with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, eye movement integration, different things like that, to kind of like, these are sort of some of the tools that I use to kind of like navigate those waters. But I don't, it's not a one size fits all type of thing. So again, it's really me holding space and just showing up and just being of service as best as I can and just kind of doing this work together. The other things that I offer are the hypnosis. For me, what I really enjoy is to be able to do work with people to reintegrate our superpowers. And so if you're able to watch the interview that Karen and I are going to do on hypnosis, that will be a really interesting conversation to kind of check more deeply into my style of hypnosis and what I offer. I call it transformational hypnosis. But you know, I've learned several different modalities at this point in my life, and while I love past life regression, and if that's what shows up, awesome, let's go with it. Because the thing is that the sessions aren't dictated and determined by what I think that you should experience. Your subconscious, your higher self is going to let me know exactly what you need. And even as clients, we have no idea. We think we might know what we're going to go in and experience, but our higher self, our, you know, some people say subconscious. Sometimes, yes, the subconscious is part of it. But to me, you have to look at it as kind of a holistic experience and the higher self as well. And so I really lean into the idea that the superconscious is really in charge of the whole thing. And it's guiding every step of the journey for you. And so it may not give you what you're looking for, but it is sure to give you exactly what you need. So again, just like the others, every single session is completely different and unique because, you know, we are getting exactly what we need from that experience. So sometimes it's that we need to have some kind of regression done. Sometimes, you know, it's looking into a future life. Sometimes it's meeting our cosmic twin that lives in the dimension where we're doing the thing that we want to be doing and we're not doing yet. And you're checking in with them and they give you the download and the attunement to help you, you know, synchronize your energy and harmonize to that frequency so that you're collapsing time and space and you're getting in tune with that. So anyway, without getting too much into that conversation, that, you know, just amazing things can happen from that space. The other thing that I offer is sound healing. I do group activations in person. I also do them online, and I finally have my music up and available on my website, as well as my YouTube channel. So I would love for you to visit me on my website, which is, again, Divine Alchemy Temple Arts.com. And my YouTube channel is Aurora Alchemy, and that's ALKHEMY I also still do body work. So if you are in the Western North Carolina area, look me up. And I would love to have a session with you. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks again for having me, Dave.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, you're very welcome. Aurora does a great job, guys. So go over, give her some support for sure. And I just want to thank you for being here again. I want to thank all the viewers. I will continue to produce great content for everyone. It's always going to be something different. You know, I like to keep topics fresh, and I am not scared of any topic literally at all. So you guys are going to see all kinds of other stuff coming on the way here. You guys probably already know what I do, but of course I do full Western astrology, which is centered on birth charts. It's centered on relationship matching. There's business applications. There's some medical astrology. There's picking days of the year that you're more likely to have success. So I do all of that. I also do, of course, spiritual guidance, which is in some ways similar to what Aurora does in terms of I want to get people to the best place for them, you know, and all the resources I know about, I'm happy and willing to provide and suggest that for people. And then, of course, I also teach principles of Eastern medicine, which centers on fasting and working with fluids, fluid circulation specifically in the body. And you know, it's lots of health tips. There's lots of things that you can do that are very well, I'd say largely safe activities that basically just revolves around you choosing certain foods over other foods, or a lot of times, you know, not choosing food to give your body a break to recharge. So I can guide you through that as well. And of course, my YouTube channel, you guys have already found it if you're on watching this video. And my Facebook page is also under Dave Petrella, and my Instagram page is Dave Petrella 12. So definitely go check those out as well. And that's it for today. I want to continue this for sure, Aurora. Thanks for being here. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.